Hi, good morning. I just wanted to make this video today because the first step to making coffee is choosing coffee. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how to choose coffee based on how you like to drink your coffee and for what situation. I just wanted you to perhaps answer a few questions for yourself. Do you struggle with caffeine sensitivity? Do you like to drink your coffee mostly with milk and flavors? Do you like your coffee extra hot or iced? And do you like your coffee on the go, or do you like to drink your coffee slowly? Do you have time to make your coffee in the morning pretty regularly, manually, or do you prefer a machine? Or do you usually buy your beans ground versus whole bean? Do you have a way to grind your coffee? What type of machine do you have? Do you have an espresso machine? Do you have a Keurig? Do you have more manual styles of brew? Are you adventurous or are you a creature of habit? These questions, if you answer them, will be really, really helpful in the rest of the video. A few reasons why choosing the best coffee is helpful is A, it can make your cup of coffee the best it can be, but also it can save you time and money. It can also help you decide in the coffee aisle, because I feel like I walk down the coffee aisle these days and it's an actual aisle. It's not just this tiny little section with like dark roast, French roast, and bold. It's now a whole aisle and you've got a lot of coffees to choose from. So if you know a little bit more about what you like and what you're going for, it'll make that trip a lot easier and you can discern sort of what you like and then go from there. And also it can help you be a little bit more adventurous within certain parameters and to know and feel like you have a little bit more knowledge when you're in the coffee aisle, so you don't feel so confused sometimes when you're walking in the coffee aisle. To start this off, I'm going to give you a brief overview of caffeine levels. The lighter the roast, the more caffeine. The darker the roast, the less caffeine. It may say on the bag, bold flavor, on these darker roasts over here, and that might be very true. A French roast might have a very bold tasting profile because it might have a very smoky flavor, but that does not mean that it's going to have a lot of caffeine. Unless they've artificially added caffeine to that coffee roast, it's going to have less caffeine than the light roast, because the more you roast a coffee, the more that coffee bean is being destroyed, basically. So lighter roast, more caffeine. Darker roast, the less caffeine. But if you do like a bolder, darker coffee tasting profile, the darker roast might be more of what you like to drink. But just know that you're not going to get as much caffeine as if you would have a lighter roast. Now, with that in mind, if you like to drink your coffee with milk, I would stick with medium to dark roasts. The reason being is that lighter roasts can also tend to have roast profiles that favor the more acidic and brighter coffees that really, really shine with a lighter roast. So those coffees might not blend very well with milk. I would stay within the roast profiles of medium to dark roast. Now, a note on dark roast. Dark roast is not French roast. French roast is going to be very dark. Now, if you don't mind a smoky flavor, feel free to go very dark. Whereas if you have a medium to dark roast, say a Guatemalan medium to dark roast, and the tasting notes say chocolatey, nutty, cherry tasting notes, those tend to go really well with milk. And espresso blends, so the espresso blends, if you are at a loss, espresso blends tend to have a roast profile and a tasting profile that goes well across most coffee brew methods. So if you're in the store and you have no time, check for an espresso blend, because that will go well with both milk and also without milk. The reason being is usually coffee shops will have an espresso blend because they've especially made that blend to be very much a chameleon. That's what they're going to use on their machine for the majority of all of their drinks, unless requested otherwise. And so that is going to be a really great choice if you are uncertain how you're going to drink your coffee. So Go for the espresso blends or medium to dark roast if you like your coffee with milk or flavors. Now, if you're a creature of habit, the amount of beans you want to buy. If you're a creature of habit and you've chosen, your medium dark roast Guatemala blend, get yourself a really wonderful bean storage method, whether it's vacuum sealed. So in the long run, this might save you more time. And buy the bigger bag and store them well. That way you won't get the rancid tasting beans as they break down over time. Because usually coffee is stored well until the bag is opened. And then you're gonna have to be more wary about humidity levels and things like that. So just take that into account when you open the bag. If you buy larger bags, try to find a good way of storing your coffee. If you are adventurous and you have the tendency to drink your coffee without milk and without flavorings, and you do more manual brew methods like AeroPress or pour overs, even drip, even the fancy drip machines, you know what I mean? If you find that you really love to taste different coffee, adventure to your local coffee shops because they have so many different options. And even look in the grocery aisle for the local coffee shops that they might feature. I feel like a lot of local grocery stores and even sometimes Walmart or Safeway, Giant, those stores are now featuring local coffee shops, coffee beans from their area, which I find to be very awesome. So choose from those. Buy the smaller bags because you don't want to get stuck with one coffee. And if you don't know where to start recipe-wise, if the shop themselves have their recipe for that particular coffee, could be a great way to start. If not, I can actually link a video of a really great starting point for pour overs. If you are just starting out. This next one is for espressos. Obviously the espresso blends. However, single origins can be really fun as well if you just like to drink your espresso without milk. If you are that person that likes the ristretto or the lungo or the, Americano or just the, your basic espresso. The espresso blend is great if you are also maybe having guests over and you don't know if they like milk or not. Because the espresso blend, usually those espresso machines that you have in your house, they come with a wand. So if you're gonna have company, espresso blend is great because what if they like milk? But if it's just you and you're also adventurous, smaller bags, have some fun. Single origins are great. If you want caffeine, obviously the lighter roasts. Have some fun dialing in. There's so many different ratios. Obviously decaf, great. Swiss water process is a wonderful way to get some decaf coffee that has a great taste profile. And it's just a lot of the decaf coffees that I have tried with Swiss water process have been phenomenal. So if you can go to the coffee aisle and find a Swiss water process decaf, try it out if you have not done it before. They're wonderful. Okay, so if heartburn or IBS or stomach issues are your problem, try cold brew. You can even do decaf cold brew if you also have caffeine sensitivities. So cold brew, this one is going to have a lot of caffeine if you don't do decaf cold brew. Cold brew has more caffeine because it's brewed longer. And cold brew is different than iced coffee. Iced coffee is brewed hot into ice. Cold brew is brewed cold for a very long period of time. So the initial bucket of water, well, I say bucket because I worked as a barista and we were doing very large amounts, but when you're making cold brew, the initial bloom is hot water, but then after that it's cold water and you steep that for like 16 to 24 hours depending. And this is a broad overview of cold brew. I'm sure so many people have so many different ways that they have done it, but that's a pretty standard way of doing cold brew. So the longer you brew coffee, the more time it has to extract that caffeine out. So word to the wise, if you are new to cold brew, take it slow because it has more caffeine than a lot of the coffee that you've probably ingested before, and certainly more caffeine than regular iced coffee. So, but it has, and it's usually brewed in a paper filter. So, and it has a lot less sediment than, say, a French press or espresso or things like that. Because usually espresso is not brewed with a paper filter. And so it's going to take out a lot of those oils and acids and sediments that a lot of brew methods that don't have a filter leave in. So those might be struggling. Those might make your stomach upset. So cold brew is a little easier on the stomach, might give you less heartburn, things like that. But it does have more caffeine. But if you do decaf cold brew, that might be a really, really fun, wonderful place to sit. Now, if you like hot coffee, still hot beverages can tend to be an intestinal irritant in the first place. However, if you do paper filters, it can help with removing some of those excess acids, oils, and sediments. So that might help as well. Also, just cooling down your coffee a little bit. If you still like that warm cup of coffee, instead of 195 degrees, just bring that down to like cap temp, 135, 140. And you can still have your warm coffee. It just might not be as hot. And so that could help your stomach as well. Now, on the go coffee. So this is what I wanted to also address. On the go coffees, there are instant coffees out there. There's the tried and true ones that have been there for a minute. And then there are a lot of coffee shops now who are developing their own and using different techniques for creating their instant coffee blends. There's also coffee concentrates. So if you are traveling in a way that allows you to take small bottles of coffee concentrate, feel free. There's also single serving pour over packets out there that are really, really awesome, that have some really great tasting coffee. And I would highly recommend those if you don't really have a lot of access to tools when you're traveling, but you find that instant coffee upsets your stomach. The single serving packets, they have the paper filter aspect, which can really filter out some of those oils and acids that can cause a lot of stomach upset. So if you find yourself traveling and using that instant coffee gives you a stomach ache that you don't normally experience with coffee, it might be because maybe you have filtered coffee normally. If you have a caffeine sensitivity, I will say there are some coffee alternatives. So chicory root, things like that. Chicory root has been around for a very long time. You don't have to do a ton of fancy things. I know that there's mushroom coffees and stuff out there. They also taste great. However, chicory root is, and it should be in the tea aisle as well. It tastes great. It's wonderful. There was a period of time when I didn't drink coffee when I was younger. And chicory root was a really, really great alternative. And it's slightly sweet and it functions quite a bit like coffee. You can put your milk in it. Just make sure your water is not too hot. The number one thing that will curdle milk is actually hot water. If you're boiling your water, and you usually have to if you're using like an herbal tea or something like that, herbal teas usually call for boiling water, 212 degree water. Just make sure once the steep period is done, either let it cool or stick some ice cubes in there before you add milk if you are going to add milk. Because if you don't and your water is too hot, it's going to curdle your milk and you're going to think that it's the tea, but it's actually probably just the temperature of your milk. Also, if you are super curious as to, the coffee that you have purchased and bought, if you are going to get nerdy with it, awesome, same. But you can look on those websites and they normally will have suggestions of the ratios for their profiles, their roast profiles for those coffees. Because a lot of these stores, especially the smaller coffee shops, will have put a lot of thought into these roast profiles, especially these coffee shops that are in-house roasters. They put a lot of thought into these roast profiles and these tasting profiles, and they will want you to get the best possible experience from these coffees. So don't be afraid to go to their websites and try it out. You don't have to nerd out alone, because these local coffee shops that are doing these roastings and these experiments and these taste tests and these cuppings to make these roasts to give to people are doing it out of passion. You don't start a coffee shop because you want to make $1 million. You start a coffee shop because you love it. So I highly suggest, if you like and you've invested in an espresso machine, to explore your local coffee shops outside of the coffee aisle. But if you are here to just be in the coffee aisle, once again, espresso blend, great for guests. If you want to explore some more, like I said, for the more manual brews, try out the local coffee shops. They're still going to have those recipes on there. They might have their recommended ratios. And if you've already got a ratio that you really, really like, then try that out. If it doesn't work, keep dialing it in. You got it. And with all of my videos, these are suggestions. And this is the broad overview for beginners. And this is a series that will be building on itself. This is the beginners series. So the rest of this series will be very broad strokes overviews. And I really want my channel to be helpful in a way that builds on itself. So when you go to my recipe videos, I can give you more straightforward recipe videos. And then if there are terms and things like that, I can list those videos down below or in the video itself to help you find that information so that those videos can really make a lot of sense and you don't feel lost or anything like that, because I really want this channel to be something that is helpful and also fun. It is more fun to make things when you feel less lost and more present and more in control of your environment. And so that is what I'm really trying to do with these foundational videos. And I hope that this video was helpful. If you have any suggestions for any sort of topic that you're very interested in, let me know in the comments below. I would love to answer some questions for you. I'll continue with my foundational videos, but please let me know if there are any topics that you have questions about. I would love to address. Thank you so much. Have a great day.